Marc Ramirez is a former University of Michigan football player who reversed type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, erectile dysfunction, psoriasis, and frequent heartburn. He has also lost 50 pounds in 3 months, and in that same time period, he eliminated 5 medications that he had been taking for 10 years using his food as medicine. Today, 6 years after he began his transition, Marc remains medication-free, his weight has not returned, and he is in the best physical shape of his life, even better than when he was playing collegiate football. He is certified through the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, PCRM, as a Food for Life instructor and conducts classes and a 21-day kickstarts to help people improve their health. He also appears in the new documentary, Eating You Alive. Marc and his wife, Kim, founded Chickpea and Bean, Inc., a nonprofit organization which strives to raise awareness and educate people on the power and benefits of a plant-based lifestyle. He holds free monthly meetings in the Detroit area that are open to anyone interested in learning about a plant-based diet. You can also learn more by going to chickpeaandbean.com. So thank you so much for being with us today, Marc.
Hey, you know what? It is my honor to be here with both you, Robbie, and Cyrus. I appreciate, first off, I need to thank the both of you because what you both are doing with this Mastering Diabetes Summit and so many other events that you hold, you're just transforming people's lives, helping people, obviously, especially on the diabetes side. So thank you both for everything you're doing. So a little bit about my story, because I know some people may have heard it, but maybe others haven't. I was born and raised in Southern Texas, big Mexican family, 8 children. There's 8 brothers and sisters in my family and my mother. And ever since I was a little kid, I remember my mother popping pills for diabetes. And as the time and the years went on, it got worse and worse to where ultimately she's taking insulin shots, she needs a kidney transplant, etc. And as I look back, all my brothers and sisters, all 8 of us, with the exception of one sister, have struggled or battled with diabetes. So when you look back at my history, my mother, diabetic for 33 years. She had a kidney transplant. She was legally blind for many years and years of dialysis. She had 2 heart attacks. Ultimately, at the end of her life, she needed a double bypass, went in for surgery and never recovered from that surgery and died at the young age of 61 years old. You look at my oldest brother, David. David was diabetic for approximately a decade. David had diabetes for approximately 10 years. He ended up having a 9-month bout with pancreatic cancer and died at the young age of 41. Next, you have my oldest sister, Carol. Now, Carol is a great story in the sense that once she saw what Kim and I did and were able to reverse all this chronic disease, she went and adopted a plant-based lifestyle and was able to eliminate the metformin and the diabetes medication she was taking. I have my little sister, Sandra. Sandra's been diabetic for 14, 15 years, and basically insulin shots, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, multiple medications. My twin brother, Joe, will be 50 years old in January, in about a month. And he's been diabetic about 16, 17 years, multiple medications, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And my little brother, Martin is 44 years old right now. He's had a heart attack. He's been diabetic for a little over 30 years. He's had a pancreas and kidney transplant. He's legally blind. He does dialysis 3 times a week. He takes 25 medications every single day. And at the end of the day, I mean, he is in poor health. So he's 44 years old right now. They just took half of his thyroid out actually this May because they found lumps on it that they believe to be cancerous. So he's in really poor health. And my story is that in 2002, the same year my mother and my brother passed away of their medical and chronic complications, I was diagnosed with diabetes. And I was not surprised because, everything I had read and everything I believed up until that point was, it's in my genes. It's in my fate. There's nothing I can do about this. Everybody around me is diabetic. So, hey, I just need to accept the fact that I will also be diabetic. It's genetic. So for 10 years, I struggled with diabetes. And ultimately, it's, you start with the metformin. The dosages just continue to go up from 500 to 1,000 milligrams. And then it's, hey, let's throw some Januvia on top of there to force your pancreas to secrete more insulin. And then it was, hey, you still need some more. Your insulin is still out of whack. Your A1C is over 10.5. Let's give you some insulin now. So I'm taking three diabetic medications. I'm taking a high cholesterol medication, a high blood pressure medication, all in a 10-year period. So I saw myself headed down the same road and same path towards amputations, blindness, heart attacks, transplants, etc. And I didn't want to go there. I was very upset. And, I had these three conditions, but on top of that, I also had erectile dysfunction. I developed psoriasis all over my scalp. I had heartburn very, very frequently. I was obese. I didn't sleep well. And I was just a hot mess at 43 years old. So lo and behold, we end up getting this gift from my in-laws. And the gift was Forks Over Knives, a DVD documentary. So they gave it to us, hey, we saw this documentary. We thought, you might be interested in it. And they gave it to us, and it kind of sat on the shelf for a few months. My wife and I didn't look at it right away, but one day just feeling depressed, my brother had just had his right leg amputated. He's having all these complications. I'm looking at my family, my two children, my wife, and I'm headed down the same path of destruction from a health perspective as I've seen my family go through. And I'm just feeling depressed. So we said, you know what, let's throw this DVD in the DVD player. So we watched Forks Over Knives, and something clicked. I had tried in my decade of being sick, I had tried to count carbs, count calories, portion control, exercise more, eat less, tried all these different tactics. And I might have lost a little bit of weight, 10 pounds here, 15 pounds there, felt a little better because I'm losing weight. But when I look back now, I'm still sick. I'm still taking the medication. So yeah, I'm feeling better about myself, but I'm doing nothing really to help improve my chronic disease. So it wasn't until, on December 3rd, we saw that documentary. And from that documentary, we found out about Dr. Neil Barnard. And we read his book, Dr. Barnard's Program for Reversing Diabetes. And those two things, watching that documentary, reading that book, understanding about intramyocellular lipid, the fat in the muscle cells, we basically adopted a whole food plant-based lifestyle on December 3rd of 2011. And in 2 months, by the end of January 2012, I was off my Lantus insulin shots and all 4 of my oral medications for all of my chronic conditions. 2 months. And here I'm sick for a decade. 2 months, I'm off all my pills. In 3 months, I had lost 50 pounds. And I'm sitting here and I can't believe it. I can't believe what's happening to my life. So that's when my wife and I we were very ecstatic about what we had just found, the power of food. And, we lived that lifestyle for a while. And then we said, this is so powerful that we need to tell any and everybody that's struggling, that's willing to listen, that's willing to try something different. Because most people are out there trying all these yo-yo diets and all these different tactics, starve yourself, eat 500 calories a day. I mean, it's unbelievable, all the different things and all the tactics that people will try, when in reality, the answer is right in front of us in the way of food. So now my wife and I just try to advocate for trying to help people understand this lifestyle, help them down this path. And inevitably, when people wrap their arms around this idea that food is what's killing us, but it can also be what saves us if you just eat the right foods, we start seeing people eliminating meds, losing weight, regaining their health, and getting better.
Marc, actually, one of the things I love about your story is that you're very outspoken about the fact that you thought that genetics were working against you, and that because diabetes was a risk factor for not only you, but all the members of your family, that it was just some kind of inevitable conclusion that you were going to get type 2 diabetes and there's nothing you could do about it. And then the light bulb went off, you switched your lifestyle, and now type 2 diabetes is a thing in the past. I think there's a lot of people who also kind of feel trapped by that message that, your genetics will eventually catch up with you. And it's really frustrating to see. So I'm glad to see that you actually decided that there was a solution.
Yeah. And more, Cyrus, as we see, and again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian. However, we are certified through as mentioned in the intro, certified Food for Life instructors. And we've learned a lot, and we've educated ourselves through the likes of people like you, right? Doctors that are helping us understand what the true reason is behind many of these chronic illness and conditions that America and people around the world really struggle with today. And, you think about epigenetics, right? Our genes, our gene expression. We can, by the foods we eat and how they interact with our body, our microbiota and everything else at a cellular level, we actually are able to tell our genes, through gene expression, we want the good ones turned on and the bad ones turned off, right? So there's all kinds of science around that, which I know you're very familiar with. But that's what we try to just tell people at a high level, because certainly we don't have the education you do, but try to help them understand that our bodies are amazing machines. And if we just fuel it with the right foods, you'll be amazed at what it can do.
Yeah, so great. Okay, so another thing that you're really outspoken about is the sort of mental reservations that a lot of men have about adopting a plant-based diet, thinking that it's just not manly in order to eat, a vegetarian or a vegan diet. So can you go into a little bit of detail here about how you kind of like flip the switch in your head and what advice you have for other men that are considering going through this process?
Yeah, growing up, I played football ever since 5th grade, from 5th grade all the way through college until I was approximately 22 years old. And of course, in that world, in the football, tough and rough and steak, and I need all this meat for my protein, and I need, and I remember eating a lot. When I'd go to training table at the University of Michigan, they'd have all these steaks laid out. I'd have 2 and 3 in one sitting and not even think about it. But I was a right guard. I was an offensive lineman. I weighed 305 pounds when I played there. And I had this belief that, this is what's going to keep me big and strong and healthy. And that's what I think a lot of athletes believe today. But it's great to see right now that more and more professional athletes, slowly but surely, they're seeing that adopting this lifestyle can really have dramatic effect on their health. But this big macho football, I was there. That was me. And what's amazing is all the things I've learned now, eating this lifestyle is what caused, in my opinion, based on what I see. Because when I look back, speaking of the genes again, just real quick, is it because I'm Mexican, or is it because all the foods we ate for decades and decades that ultimately led me to be diabetic and have all these other issues that we have and my whole family? So the bottom line is we think that this is manly. And ultimately what we find, Cyrus and Robbie, is that these very foods that we think are manly are causing all kinds of health problems. And speaking of manly, let's talk about ED, because I think we mentioned that was one thing that I also was struggling with. It was, talk about being a man, and yet you have a beautiful, sexy wife, and here you're not able to perform. It's very deflating as a man. It's not very manly when you can't, have great relations with your spouse or with your significant other. And when you realize that the foods, predominantly the animal foods, are what are contributing to most of the artery clogging, the artery clogging, you look at the vein to the privates for a male, basically it's one of the smallest arteries in our body. And so when your veins and your arteries are starting to clog, that's one of the first ones to go, right? So most cardiologists or doctors, you walk in there and say, hey, I have ED. Hopefully you would hope that they're talking about cardiovascular disease and trying to change your diet to reverse that. But I was struggling very bad with ED, so much so that I would blame the dog. Oh, it's too loud. I'd make every excuse in the book on why I couldn't perform. And in reality, it's really about the penile artery was clogging. It was clogging because of the foods I've been eating for so long. And unfortunately, today, so many men think that they're going to go pop a pill and life is great. And unfortunately, what they're doing is masking the bigger train wreck down the road, and that's the heart attack and the stroke that are coming, right? Because if your penile artery is clogging, you can bet that all the other ones are clogging too. It's just going to take a little bit longer because they're much larger than the penile artery. So I tell people, look, man, it is amazing, because I struggled for years with ED. And that's the one thing that took a little bit longer. And I wasn't taking any medication for it, but that took probably 4 to 5 months before that cleared out. And I started to see a big difference there. And I mean a big difference. But the bottom line is when you look at this, and now I tell this to everybody, look, I feel like I'm back in my 20s, back in, and life is great. And my wife and I are much happier. And I, of course, now feel like a man, right? I have dare I say, and I've heard this term, I think, coined by Rip Esselstyn, but a plant-powered pecker, right? I mean, it is amazing what has happened, how it has changed our lives in the bedroom and all around for the better. So I would tell anyone, if you think that popping a pill is going to help you, really you're masking that bigger problem. And really you need to address the core issue of the problem, and that is that your arteries are clogging, more than likely because of the foods you're eating. Separate those foods. Let's get back and let's be a real man. A real man, I think, is going to protect his health so that he can take care of his wife, his kids, and maybe he doesn't have grandchildren yet or great-grandchildren, but hopefully so that he can be around to kick the soccer ball, throw the baseball, throw the football around. That's what a real man is going to do. That's what, to me, in my book, is manly.
That's very, very well said. And I know you're just such a bright example of these things you're talking about, but also I've seen you on news clips working with other former athletes and people on the football team that you know. Have you had a chance to talk to any other football players, and how is that going as far as them changing their lifestyle as well?
You know, it's interesting you asked that, Robbie. So I feel very blessed that I go back to a lot of the reunions at the University of Michigan, and I see many of my former teammates, and a lot of them look great, but many of them look like they're carrying too much weight, and you know they're not doing that well from a health perspective. So I was able to. So it's me, and then there are I have documented cases, 3 other Michigan players who, one in particular went on to play in the NFL. Greg Skrepnik, he's on our, he came out, we're on Channel 7 or Channel 2 rather here locally in Detroit. And he has a phenomenal story in that, I had been on him, right? I had been on him because he was weighing, when he played, he was 6'8", and he was 330, 340 pounds. When I talked to him at the beginning of January, and I've been on him now for a few years, he's 516 pounds. And he's 6'8", but still way overweight. So I finally convinced him. I said, Greg, come on, we got to do this, buddy. So he adopts a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. And in 1 year, he lost 150 pounds. He was off his cholesterol meds. His AFib was all but disappeared. And his whole attitude, his whole lifestyle has dramatically improved. So he wants to lose maybe another 40, 50 pounds. But he is doing so much better. That's one case. I have another gentleman, Jeff Tubal. Jeff was diabetic for many years, cholesterol, taking medicines for heartburn that he would get all the time. He adopts a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. His diabetes meds are gone. His heartburn medicine is gone. He's just doing so much better. And then Jim Sinclair, there's another gentleman who approached me about 2.5 years ago and says, Marc, my doctor advised me I'm diabetic. I don't want to be diabetic. What did you do? I've seen your story. It's more specific. So through talking, texting, sharing information, he's no longer diabetic. So there's 4 of us now, and more people, especially on that team, they're starting to open their eyes and starting to, reach out. I've had other people tell me, hey, I'm going to start to do this. So we want to support any of my football, Michigan brothers, to help them down this path. But we had some great success there, and very excited I'm going to reach out to all of them and let them know that I'm here, man, and we can do. It's not just diabetes, right? It's high blood pressure, it's high cholesterol, it's heart disease, it's all these other chronic conditions that we deal with today.
That's awesome. Okay, so you have experience working in a office setting with coworkers who are not necessarily plant-based. So what tips can you provide for people to succeed in an office environment?
Yeah, I think whenever whenever we're going to work, and most of us do, right, is planning and being prepared, right? So my wife and I, when I go to work, we prep our own meals here, and I eat before I go to work, right? So many times when you go to the cafeterias at the work environments, different office centers, et cetera, they typically will not have the healthiest foods for you. So I think whenever you can plan or prep and realize that when you control the food, it's probably going to be much healthier for you, especially if you're eating a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. There's so many things you can do. I'll bring carrots, I'll bring cucumber slices, salads. We'll have a hummus sandwich. Sometimes I'll throw a PBJ in there. It just depends on what's going on, but there's all kinds of veggie sandwiches, all kinds of snacks that you can bring. The fruit, bananas, oranges, apples, grapes, kiwi. I mean, just mangoes. I see those mangoes on your shelf in the back there. But just a ton of fruit. But really planning is going to be key. And I know it's very tempting because you will see it all the time. People bring in donuts and they bring all these other foods that might be tempting, especially if you're just starting this. That's why it always helps to have and bring your own food so that you can still get some of that good sweetness and good food in your body. And hopefully it'll keep those cravings away. But I think planning is key in an office environment, and understanding that the more you control your food, the better off it's going to be for you. So that's what we do. I bring my own food, and I bring a lot of it. And I'm not tempted by those other foods, because I know how, in these 6 years of living this lifestyle, one of the things that has helped us is kind of just a little mental switch that now turns on that says, those foods are really bad for you. So I don't view them. I don't see this chocolate cake that's not vegan, or even the vegan cakes. I mean, there's so many foods today that are plant-based that are also not the best for you today. More and more food companies are realizing that people want to shift this way, and they don't want to harm animals, or they want to help the environment. So that's great. But they're loading these foods with fat, salt, and sugar. Same thing they do with the non-vegan food. So you could be, Oreos and Nutter Butters and, French fries and all these unhealthy foods. You could be vegan and or plant-based and still be as big and sick as the non-vegan or non-plant-based eaters. So you need to be careful. But all in all, I think planning is going to be one of the main keys to help people. We have done kickstarts there in our office where I work, and we've seen and had some good results of people wrapping their arms around this idea, and we see some good results.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, actually, because, preparation is absolutely required in order to make this lifestyle work. I mean, to a certain extent, preparation is required to make any, lifestyle change work, whether you're becoming plant-based or whether you're not becoming plant-based, because if you're relying on the outside world to provide you with exactly what you're looking for, you're bound to get disappointed. So, it couldn't be more correct that, especially if you're trying to go plant-based, which, sort of to a certain extent kind of limits the food that you're eating. You got to make sure that beforehand you have everything you need so that you don't walk into a trap and then feel like, you can't really participate in social events or be around other people that are eating non-plant-based foods.
Right.
So one thing that you guys do is you guys host potlucks. So you and your wife, Kim, host potlucks in the local Detroit area. Can you talk a little bit more about the importance of community, and then help our listeners understand how they might be able to either participate in a community or develop a community in the region in which they live?
Yeah, so Kim and I, when we launched Chickpea and Bean a little over 3 years ago, it was with that whole mindset of, we know this powerful and have this powerful information. Now we need to let any and everybody know. Anybody that's sick of being sick, tired of being tired, we've all heard the cliches, right? We need to put this in their arms because we saw what it did for our family, that how it changed our entire trajectory for the better. So we started our nonprofit, and then we just called the local library here and we said, hey, can we have meetings at the library and help people, educate people about a whole food plant-based lifestyle, about nutrition, about food? And they said, sure. So we host meetings at the library. We have potlucks. We bring in medical professionals. We bring in chefs that teach, how to make foods this way. Many of the meetings, Kim and I will actually demo food demonstrations and talk about how we live our lifestyle, because it's been 6 years. 6 years that we have lived this lifestyle. I'm still medication free. I'm in the best shape of my life at 50 years old. And so in the community, we find that more and more people, they find out about us. And we have anywhere between 50 to, our highest, I think, was almost 200 people that show up to our meetings. And they're free. They're open to anyone that wants to join us. Like I said, we hold the kickstarts. We do potlucks. And I think it's really cool because we do get, we know the city clerk. They're all enthusiastic about trying to help our community as well. We're looking to run a kickstart right here locally in our own as well. And we're in the process of getting that set up. But I think when you can help all the people around you, especially where you live, and try to help them understand that there's so much they can do to control their own destiny and their own fate. But that's how we started. We started with just the meeting started small. I think it was 12 people at the first meeting. And then the next meeting was maybe 20, 21. And then it just grew from there to we're now in our meetings. And they're free. We're doing this to share the information because we believe so much in it. And so like I said, we try to share all this information with people and help them understand that don't let your genes control your fate, because the food, more than likely, food is going to be controlling your fate more than your genes. Not that there aren't some genetic components to it. I get it. There are. However, food and your lifestyle, the smoking, the drinking, moving, exercising a little bit, a little meditation, a little yoga, all these things are going to help promote a premier lifestyle, as opposed to, look around, right? Heart disease continues to go up every year, obesity, cancer. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. And unfortunately, we have the best medical technology, the best educated individuals. This country is number one when it comes to procedures and medications. However, we're still one of the sickest in the world. How does that happen? It's because we're focused on, we're being reactive to all these conditions and not proactive in trying to prevent it from ever happening. So Kim and I hope that by involving the community, and it should, get little tentacles out there, and there's more and more people start hearing about it, start understanding it, start coming to the meetings. And it's been great. We've been doing it for 3 years, and we plan on continuing to have the meetings here in Clinton Township, Michigan, where we live. And we're branching out to different communities as well, working through different medical centers, and working with businesses as well to try and just keep promoting the message.
That's terrific. Really, really cool. Okay, so in your experience running Food for Life classes and facilitating 21-day kickstarts, what is the number one challenge that you see people face when it comes to making lifestyle change, and how do you help them overcome that challenge?
Yeah, so I think I think it's a mindset. We are so conditioned and used to eating a certain way, and food is it's ingrained in us, right? We grew up, mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, and these traditions and these recipes are passed down. So it's very intimate to each one of us, because that's how we grow. Every holiday, whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever holiday you celebrate, or birthdays and different parties, anniversaries, there's always a bunch of food, and you're used to certain. So it's ingrained in us with the food. And I think what we try to tell people is, look, all the foods that I grew up eating, the fajitas, the enchiladas, the tacos, I still eat all of those foods. The pizza that I love, I still eat pizza. It's just, you need to find a way to make them healthier, to veganize them, to make them plant-based, so that when you're eating these foods, they're healthful for you as opposed to harming you. And so we try to get them to see that, look, the pastas and all these dishes that I love, pizza, enchiladas, you can do this. We just need to tweak the recipes a little bit, put some healthier foods in there, right? What some of the challenges in the kickstarts that we do, it's that mindset too of, like I said, I can't give up cheese. I can't give up meat. How am I going to do this? And we try to tell them, look, by substituting these foods, you'll get satiated. You'll get a lot of the same flavors, because in reality, when you think about the foods that we make, chicken and steaks and all those foods that I used to eat, a lot of times it's not necessarily the chicken or the steak, but it's all the seasonings and all the rubs that you put on these foods is where the taste comes, right? So, okay, so get some portobello mushrooms, make a rub for that, make a sauce for that. The enchiladas, yeah, there's all kinds. You can do lentil tacos, veggie fajitas. There's so many. The beans, from a Mexican family, I go and I'll have bean burritos, I'll have burrito bowls, veggie fajitas. If I want some pizza, I get a thin crust, I put double sauce, all the veggies I want on it. You can still eat all the same foods you're used to. You just need to find a way to tweak them a little bit so that they're much healthier for you. And you'll be amazed at how your body will respond. That's what we try to tell them is, the bottom line is you can still eat all the foods you love and enjoy. You just need to try and tweak them a little bit so that you make them plant-based and much healthier for you.
So Marc, you and your wife run a business called Chickpea and Bean, in which people can learn from you and start to transition towards a more plant-based lifestyle. So can you brag about what you do and go into a little bit of detail about how other people can learn about Chickpea and Bean and how they can also get involved?
Yeah, so thank you very much for that opportunity, Cyrus and Robbie. Yeah, so Chickpea and Bean has been around for a little over 3 years now. We're a nonprofit organization, and again, our mission is to educate people about the power and benefits of a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. And so what we do is we do 21-day kickstarts. We actually have a 21-day kickstart that's going to be starting here at the end of December of this year, 2017. We We hold free meetings at our public library here in Clinton Township, Michigan, where we live. And we do Food for Life classes where we teach people that we bring them in here. We share medical information from Dr. Neil Barnard at PCRM, and we actually have cooking demonstrations as well. And there's a ton of free resources on our website at chickpeaandbean.com. There's a meetings tab, there's success stories, there's recipes, all kinds of information. And for the most part, it's all free and all out there. And if anyone is interested, please look us up. We're on Facebook. We're constantly posting recipes and information to help people try and improve their health. We have Twitter and Instagram as well. So you can find us on social media there. And again, our website is chickpeaandbean.com.